Hello and welcome to AI CyberTalk, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges in LLM security. Today we're going to talk about one of the most common and critical threats to LLM applications, the denial of service attack. Denial of service is a type of attack where an adversary interacts with an LLM in a way that consumes an exceptionally high amount of resources, which results in a decline in the quality of service for them and other users, as well as potentially incurring high resource costs. Denial of service attacks can affect the availability, scalability, or efficiency of the LLM application and its services. But how can an attacker cause a denial of service condition for an LLM? Well, there are several techniques that can be used to exploit the vulnerabilities of LLMs. One of the techniques is to pose queries that lead to recurring resource usage through high-volume generation of tasks in a queue. For example, an attacker could use LangChain or AutoGPT, which are platforms that allow users to create and execute custom LLM tasks, to generate a large number of complex or long-running tasks that overload the system. Another technique is to send queries that are unusually resource-consuming, perhaps because they use unusual orthography or sequences. For example, an attacker could use characters or symbols that are not commonly used in natural language, such as emojis, mathematical symbols, or foreign alphabets, to confuse or slow down the LLM. A third technique is to exploit the context window of the LLM. The context window is the maximum length of text that the LLM can manage, covering both input and output. An attacker can interfere with or manipulate the context window in various ways to cause a denial of service condition. For instance, continuous input overflow. An attacker sends a stream of input to the LLM that exceeds its context window, causing the model to consume excessive computational resources. Repetitive long inputs. The attacker repeatedly sends long inputs to the LLM, each exceeding the context window. Recursive context expansion. The attacker constructs input that triggers recursive context expansion, forcing the LLM to repeatedly expand and process the context window. Variable length input flood. The attacker floods the LLM with a large volume of variable length inputs, where each input is carefully crafted to just reach the limit of the context window. This technique aims to exploit any inefficiencies in processing variable length inputs, straining the LLM and potentially causing it to become unresponsive. Here are some examples of how an attacker can cause a denial of service condition for an LLM. An attacker repeatedly sends multiple requests to a hosted model that are difficult and costly for it to process, leading to worse service for other users and increased resource bills for the host. For example, an attacker could target a chatbot service that uses an LLM to generate natural language responses and send queries that require long or complex outputs, such as stories, poems, or code. Another way can be where an attacker continuously bombards the LLM with input that exceeds its context window. The attacker may use automated scripts or tools to send a high volume of input, overwhelming the LLM's processing capabilities. As a result, the LLM consumes excessive computational resources, leading to a significant slowdown or complete unresponsiveness of the system. For example, an attacker could target a text summarization service that uses an LLM to generate concise summaries of long documents, and send inputs that are longer than the maximum length supported by the service. A third way is an attacker can leverage the LLM's recursive mechanisms to trigger context expansion repeatedly. This attack strains the system and may lead to a denial of service condition, making the LLM unresponsive or causing it to crash. For example, an attacker could target a question answering service that uses an LLM to generate answers based on previous context, and send inputs that contain self-referential or circular questions, such as, "What is this question about?" or "What is the answer to this question?" These are just some of the scenarios where a denial of service attack could occur with an LLM. But how can we prevent or mitigate these attacks? Here are some best practices that developers should follow. 1. Implement input validation and sanitization to ensure user input adheres to defined limits and filters out any malicious content. 2. Cap resource use per request or step, so that requests involving complex parts execute more slowly. 3. Enforce API rate limits to restrict the number of requests an individual user or IP address can make within a specific time frame. 4. Limit the number of queued actions and the number of total actions in a system reacting to LLM responses. 5. Continuously monitor the resource utilization of the LLM to identify abnormal spikes or patterns that may indicate a denial of service attack. 6. Set strict input limits based on the LLM's context window to prevent overload and resource exhaustion. 7. Promote awareness among developers about potential denial of service vulnerabilities in LLMs and provide guidelines for secure LLM implementation. By following these best practices, developers can create more secure and reliable LLM applications that can resist denial of service attacks and provide better service to their users. That's all for today's episode of AI CyberTalk. I hope you learned something new and useful about LLM security. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And don't forget to check out our website, www.aicyberadvisors.com, where you can find more information and resources about LLM security. Thanks for watching. For more information, go to www.aicyberadvisors.com.